know, this is a breakfast that I have. I like breakfast. Some people want, like more elaborate. Maybe next time we have more elaborate, right? But I hope that this gives you the energy to then go on to the march, right, to the parade. And this year is the 9th annual breakfast and so we've been doing it for 9 years. But just like this year's the 50th anniversary, right? Next year we're going to have the 10th anniversary of our breakfast, right? And so we'll try to do something really, really special next year as well, so that you can all join us. And this is pretty local, it's sort of like my neighbors. I live right up the street, for the last 22 years now. And it's a happy day when we start here and then we go march. And so people come from the neighborhood and some come from a little bit outside the neighborhood. But as you know, this is a special year because people are coming really from all over the world to the parade this year. This is international. This has gone international, not national, international, right? And I was downtown yesterday. Downtown is an esoteric word. I like to tell people that uptown for some folks is north of 59th Street. For other folks is north of 96th Street. For other folks is north of 125th Street. I was part of the first generation in my family that used to go downtown, really, because my grandparents worked in factories downtown, but everybody kept their heads down. I doubt they ever went to a fancy restaurant on the east side. The west side wasn't back then what it is right now, right? So my brother and I were literally like the first generation of our family to discover the city, right? And go south of 96th Street, which is what we call downtown. And so, but today, we're going to go to the 26th Street? 26th, right? That's where it starts.
It starts at 30th Street.
What, 30th?
Yeah, because I'm playing there on the street today. It starts at 30th.
Leave it to Annette, she knows something. You going to bring your drums, Richard?
Yeah, I'll be bringing my drums.
All right.
I'm doing a present.
You got to see her percussion performance. Right.
It's going to be fun.
Sometimes, I get noise complaints. I say, it's very difficult to play the congas quietly, right? But she does it elegantly and everybody loves it. But anyway, this is a special year. And of course, I was very proud to be a state senator when we passed major marriage equality. In fact, I believe, what year was that now? Anybody remember? 2011, yes. So I think it was the second year that we had the breakfast, right? So we had the breakfast, and that same day, I got picketed by the local churches, some of the local churches in the neighborhood, because of my vote on marriage equality. In fact, the priest in my mother's church, I don't say which one.
I'll tell you later.
Got up at the pulpit, as my mother was in the front pews, and like blasted me and gave my office number to the entire church. But then we had after the breakfast, we had a Foro on Columbia University by the hospital. And we had a good turnout, and we had young people, right, give testimony of their experience living in a family, right, with that now will have the ability and the right to get married, and what their experience was. And it was just like a movie. Everybody really wanted to see it. And so it was great because that's the way we answered that effort to shut us down. But this is a special year, and as I said, people are coming from all over, and there's much more to do, obviously. And I'm a member of the LGBT Equality Caucus in Congress, and we still have so much more to do with regards to the rights and privileges, the everyday rights that all communities should have, including the LGBTQ community. And I'm happy to be a strong supporter, continue to be a strong supporter, because everybody under the sun should have the same rights. And today we're going to celebrate that. And I'm going to be marching. My bad knees are feeling better today. And I'm going to be marching as I do almost every year. And so thank you for being here. I'm going to now ask our Manhattan Borough President, who never misses any meeting, and she's popular. God forbid she ever ran against me. I'll be in trouble. Come on, Gail.
I'm delighted to be here. I think this is a special year for lots of reasons. One of them is, in addition to being borough president, I also teach at Hunter. And it's so exciting this year, and perhaps for the first time, because I've been doing it for about 20 years, you saw the young people extremely interested in LGBTQ and trans issues. It was a very different time. Let me give you an example which was hysterical, which you can all relate to. We had a speaker come who is interested in writing books about politics, particularly in Brooklyn. And he said to the young people, now in the past we had female district leaders and we had male district leaders. What are we going to do now when an individual doesn't identify as either? And I thought, and the young people, they didn't even take 5 seconds to pick it up. They knew exactly the concern. I want to congratulate the community because they have, the LGBTQ has given this community, young people, the opportunity, as the congressman said, to be themselves in a way that I cannot describe. They feel so empowered. They feel proud of this change. And I want to give the community credit because these young people are all struggling. It's very hard. Obviously, the QB system, you know those students. We have 5 doctors in a class of 25. We had a young woman who came from Mexico with her mother over the border illegally. Her mother got stage 4 cancer. She knows nobody else in the city of New York in terms of families. Those are the young people you have empowered. And I just want to say, I don't think you know how deep it is because it's really deep. And I just want to congratulate you for that. Second, I have to go to 2 friggin' marches now. Because some people don't like the second march because it's too corporate. So now I gotta go to the first march too.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Oh, man. It's okay if you only have to go to 1 march, but after you got the Polish, the Scottish, the Dominican, the Irish, Israeli, I think. But anyway, it's a big day. It's good for the economy of the city of New York. I mean, everywhere you go, there are thousands of people spending money in restaurants and hotels and all these good things and excited. And you know what? It's not humid. And it's not bringing 90 degrees. I was like praying that it would not be, because yesterday was horrible. And we've all done the parade when it's so hot that when you put your feet on the ground, the asphalt comes up. So in so many ways, it's a great day. I know Richard was yesterday at Harlem Pride, and that's always a very special event because it's local, it's community, the vendors were excited, it was hot as the dickens, but it was a great feeling to it. So I'm just excited to be here knowing that this community is evolving, and I have to say my message is thank you for your work you've done to the young people because you are changing their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Running out for more other parades. Okay, let me share some data with you. First of all, I'm a co-sponsor of H.R. 5, which is the Equality Act, that will finally and fully end discrimination across the LGBTQ community in the United States. Let me share some information. For example, only 21 states have explicit laws barring discrimination based on sexual orientation in employment, housing, public accommodations, and only 20 states have such protections for gender identity. in most states, a same-sex couple can get married one day and legally denied services at a restaurant, be fired from their job or evicted from their apartment the next day. The Equality Act amends existing federal civil rights laws to create a nationwide standard, and that's what we're looking to do, and explicitly prohibits discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. In New York, our communities are blessed and strengthened by the diversity of LGBT friends and neighbors. That we know. And as we take this momentous step forward, we must recommit standing strong against bigotry. Let me give you some other like international stuff. As of 2019, 27, and I do this because I'm also a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, right? Where we look at this issue internationally, right? 27 countries recognize same-sex marriage. That's a great step forward, right? By contrast, 14 countries or jurisdictions impose the death penalty for gay folks, and these countries include, no surprise, Afghanistan, Brunei, Iran, Mauritania, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, who we want to sell arms to, and who's involved in kidnapping journalists, and you know what happens then? Sudan, Yemen, United Arab Emirates, and parts of Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, and Iraq. In addition, at least 9 countries have national laws criminalizing forms of gender expression that target transgender and gender non-conforming people. So these are like the challenges that we have. And even if you pass those laws, right, you have to have a mechanism to enforce them, right? Laws are passed all the time at different levels, municipal, state, federal, but if you don't have the mechanism to enforce them, right, then they're somewhat meaningless, right? And so our next presenter, right, is the commissioner of the New York State Human Rights Division, who monitors what's going on at all levels regarding our laws in New York State, and she's a neighbor here as well. She lives a little further up in another state called Washington Heights. Further down, actually.
That's downtown.
Yeah, she's down south, right? And so let's welcome Angela Fernández.
First, I want to thank the Congressman for his leadership, and especially also his leadership, not only now, but also in the Senate. I mean, that was very brave back then. We think that a lot of the laws that we have today, we've had for a long time, and they're actually really quite new. And so that's what I want to speak a little bit about. I'm the Commissioner of the New York State Division of Human Rights. It is the oldest human rights law in the country. It's 75 years old. And every year or every 2 years, it expands, thanks to the legislature and then whoever the governor is, and this year Governor Cuomo signs laws that expand the rights. This year, we passed an agenda which prevents discrimination against anyone based on gender identity or gender expression. And then our agency, which has almost 200 employees, made up of investigators, attorneys that are prosecutors, administrative law judges who adhere the cases, and then we can award monetary damages to people who have been discriminated against. And in the case of gender, if you've been discriminated against based on your identity or your expression, where, for example, you get fired from your job, or you do not get hired at a job, or you have a real estate broker that is steering you into certain neighborhoods, or if you are a public accommodation, where you're at a store and you're being discriminated against at that store. Any type of discrimination, we can then investigate, prosecute, and if we find for the claimant, we will seek monetary damages. So this is something very important that many people are not aware of. And I also want to give a shout out to Marsha P. Johnson, and Sylvia Rivera. These were trans women of color who were the ones who put their bodies on the line, along with many others, and who, thanks to them, we are where we are here today. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, Congressman, for your leadership. And our headquarters are in the Bronx. We have 12 offices across the state, but our headquarters are in the Bronx. You can file a claim if you have one. If you're not sure, come and we will sit down and talk to you and identify if you've been discriminated against in the past. We're going to prosecute and we're going to enforce these laws.
Very good, all right. And so, we celebrate Stonewall today. I remember Stonewall, but of course I couldn't speak any English back then. As Celia Cruz used to say, what was it?
Azúcar.
She used to say azúcar, but she also used to say my English is not very good looking. So, but I remember the stuff in the media and it looked good and fun. It was like a revolution, right? And so I've always been attracted to a revolution. And so we also have a couple of judges. We have people that enforce, right? Angela, we make laws sometime, Gail. And now let's see, I don't know if you speak here. This is government, this is not political. Sure. And we have a local judge. I always got to go through ethics, right? Everything that I do in Washington, you send a letter, you got to send it by ethics. You know, you say something, you got to send it by ethics. So we got to follow it. One better ethics than Judge Shah Ally. Come on, Judge.
Good morning, everyone. It's really special to be here. In my former life, the Congress is correct, I am now a sitting judge in Bronx Criminal Court. In my former life, I was the chairman of community board as well, which is, I would say, and I know our borough president's here, but I'm slightly biased. It's my favorite community board in Manhattan, if not the city, for a variety of reasons. You're all part of the board, you're all my neighbors, right? This is probably the most accepting, tolerant, inviting neighborhood community we'll have. Community Board 12 was one of the first, if not the first, to establish an LGBTQ task force led by Richard Ullman, right here. He deserves a round of applause. Where we looked at the issues that would keep our communities vibrant, keep communities members here, whether it be businesses, practices, what the needs are. So Richard brought those ideas to me. And when we needed enforcement, when we needed the muscle, when we needed allies to get these things happening, there were no two better allies than our Manhattan Borough President, Gale Brewer. And if we really needed the muscle to make things happen, we've got a congressman here, Adriano Espaillat, because if you ever wanted someone to pick a fight for you, where someone was not being treated correctly, it's this guy here. And the last point I'm going to say is that now I've transitioned my life to the bench. We always have to make sure we pick judges who are understanding that the people who come before us are individual themselves. So if a person tells me they need a certain pronoun, they need a certain accommodation, the answer is always, you got it. Yes, just tell me who it is. We need judges like that. But we also have another special judge in the audience. Special to me is a family court judge, Alicia Lorazali. She happens to be my wife also. So thank you all for being here. I want to thank the Congressman for this is his 9th, and we look forward to 9 more, if not 9 more after that.
Please.
Thank you all.
I'll be at that beach. Come on, don't mess with this family.
Good morning. I'm Alicia Lorazali. I'm a family court judge. And everything everyone said is really
Speak up,
important.
please.
Everything that everyone said is really important. In family court, we're very cognizant of LGBTQ rights, especially with the youth. And so in my courtroom, we always ask, the attorneys, is there a pronoun or name that your client would like to be recognized by? And we're very mindful of that and give everyone the respect that they're due. And so that is the big component of what we do in family court. So keep up the good work and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, I am, something that I must recognize as well, right? This neighborhood, I was concerned by that with the growth of the LGBT LGBTQ community here, that there wouldn't be a receptive voice in this neighborhood and in Washington Heights. But I was really looking out for it, right, to see how the community would react. And I must say, the community has been very welcoming. We haven't had, any ugly events. Quite the contrary, I think the community has been very tolerant, and in fact, any ugly events that we have has been from outsiders that have come in, as they did up in Fort Washington, in Fort Tryon Park, when you had that group, that white nationalist group, Adentro de Europa, who unveiled this anti-immigrant and anti-Jewish banner. And unfortunately, when The Nation, a very prestigious national magazine, foiled the federal government, they found out that ICE was surveilling us. We had a counter vigil, not even a protest. We have families and children, and we had rabbis and reverends and priests all come together there at Fort Tryon. And we found out that ICE had us in that list of activities that they were surveilling. Instead of being there to protect us when the racists were up there, they were there to spy on us and surveil us when we had a civic engagement with our community. But this community, what I mean to say is that this community has been, I think, very supportive, and I'm sure, I'm confident that we'll continue to be supportive of our LGBTQ neighbors. And I think it speaks very, very highly of it. So Northern Manhattan has always been a community of diversity. When I came here as a kid, I was embraced by, I remember the McCormicks. The McCormicks were like an Irish couple, right? Seniors, right? Their children have moved out to the suburbs, and they remained in the community, and they were very, very supportive of like the young people there, which were primarily young Dominicans, right? We were immigrants. And they embraced us, and they nurtured us. I never forget that, right? Because, you came in, and everybody used to go down there to the McCormicks. They lived on the first floor, about 153rd Street. And they were just like a support system. Anytime we had like a summer job application, we would go down to the McCormicks, and they would fill it out for us, right? Then we had, the Reverend Rucker, who was a black Baptist preacher who had a church downstairs, and he provided the summer youth job. And his slogan was, "I'm going to teach you the Judeo-Christian tradition." In our broken English, we would say, "What is that, Reverend Rucker?" He goes, "Well, the Judeo-Christian tradition." He was a very militant civil rights leader, right? He's the guy that led, some of you may remember, the Westway protests. They were trying to build this huge highway, the West Side Highway, that would interfere with the ecosystem in the Hudson River. And he led the movement against it and stopped it. And he said, the Judeo-Christian tradition means that if they slap you on the cheek, you turn the other cheek. And if they slap you on the other cheek, you give them the 13. And so when he speak in English, that Reverend must have 13, so that's the size of my foot. And of course, we had a host of the Puerto Rican community with toros that speak English. They were the bodega owners, and they were the superintendents. And so they got us the big apartments. As we moved from the west side, my grandmother lived on the west side in the Embassy Hotel in the 80s, and the Beacon Hotel, which is now the theater. There were single room occupancy hotels where those immigrants came, right? And as their family members came behind them, they needed a bigger apartment. So what better place than Washington Heights, which had and still has this huge apartments to now bring your families of, 4, 5, 10, 11 kids, right? And the Puerto Ricans who were like the superintendents were the ones that helped us get the apartment. So it was this support mechanism. People talk about this Puerto Rican Dominican rivalry, so you guys don't know the history. I grew up, my childhood friends almost totally were Puerto Ricans. Taught me in school how to speak English. And so this is a connection of this neighborhood. You have the Greeks. The Greeks up by St. Spiridon Church, big community here. Right? Big community here. You have the Cubans. The Cubans are all the business owners on St. Nicholas Avenue, right? They call it the Escambral. The Escambral is a place in Havana which is very hilly, and since Washington Heights is a hilly place, they renamed St. Nicholas Avenue El Escambral. If you tell an old Cuban that was there back then, you remember El Escambral, that's where they had all the businesses. I think the only one that's left there is Joyería Pérez, the jewelry store, and Mambi, 177th Street. Those were the only 2 businesses left there. All those businesses were Cuban. Over here, this was all Irish. Oh, Irish. Franco, redhead. And so this neighborhood, what I mean by all of this is to say that this neighborhood has been, first and foremost, a neighborhood that has been strengthened by diversity. And the LGBTQ community is yet another layer of support and strength that will make this neighborhood stronger. And this neighborhood has followed its tradition of being supportive, show solidarity to those that seek to get justice. So I thank you. Roberto, get up. Did you get the memo?
Yeah, I got it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. God bless you. Keep the faith.